Our second speaker is Dr. Stephen Fawkes, and he's the Managing Director of EP Group in the UK. Do we have Dr. Stephen Fawkes here? All right, let me introduce him as he comes up on the screen. So he has 30 plus years of experience, 30 plus. So a child born when Dr. Stephen Fawkes was starting his career is how old? More than 30 years. So basically me. He's recognized as an international expert on energy efficiency. He has delivered a lot of energy management programs for large public and private sector clients. He is also, he has co-founded 2 ESCOs, and he'll be telling us more about what ESCOs are, if you're interested to hear about that. He has also published 3 books. How many books have you published? Any others in the house? No, none. He has published 3 books. So if you want to learn how to publish books, see Dr. Stephen Fawkes on the side. He also has published more than 250 papers and articles. He sits on many, many boards. He sits on policy. He advises policy in the government and many other wonderful things. If I was to read his CV, I'd be here all day. So I'll send you to the EP Group website to go and see more. We are really excited to have you, Dr. Stephen Fawkes. Tell us more about the ESCO-In-A-Box solution and how it can be used to accelerate renewable energy. Over to you, Dr. Fawkes.
Okay, well, thank you for that warm introduction, and greetings from London. As you may have heard, we're having some troubles with prime ministers at the moment, and I'm having some connectivity problems, so hopefully we'll get through this without me dropping out. So I'm going to share my screen and share this presentation. Works well. Let's see. So hopefully you have the presentation in front of you. So just a few words about the EP Group. We are impact focused, so we're really focused on creating maximum positive impact from everything that we do. And we're also focused on enabling people to optimize their energy transition. And we do that in several ways. And the ways that we create impact, capacity, we help bring investment, and we help deliver high performance projects and programs, one of which I'll be talking about this morning. And we have consultancy, research and development, project design, planning, so that's and design, and then asset management. And we worked in various parts of the world, all around the world at times. And Lynette said, been in energy service companies, both starting and running energy service companies from scratch up to £600 million revenue. So it's considerable experience, both my own experience and that of the team. So that's where we're coming from. So I think we need to stop and see this energy transition is happening. You know, energy transition has become a phrase that you hear all the time, and we kind of think that we know what's happening, but we sometimes get removed from it, sort of hear sound bites. But this is some latest graphs from the Rocky Mountain Institute, RMI, which this report called the Energy Transition Narrative is really worth reading, because I think it's the most sort of recent numbers, the most recent graphs, and the most interesting kind of perspective on the energy transition. And basically change is happening fast, and I think much faster than most people realize. Yeah, so what I was saying really is this change is happening much faster than most people realize, and everybody who isn't on top of this is getting left behind. So essentially what this these trends mean is that any existing energy infrastructure, whether you're a country, a company, or in a house or any building, any existing energy infrastructure is out of date, basically. And they also create the opportunity to develop new service-based business models like ESCOs that we've started to hear about, that completely retool the energy infrastructure in order to reduce the cost, reduce emissions, improve resilience. So this is like a unique moment where these trends have existed so much that it's actually is cost effective to replace energy infrastructure in almost all situations that you can think of. Now, there are other constraints and timing and so forth as to where you might not do it at any particular time, but right now, this is a unique moment. So the problem, we have this strong growth in electricity demand, obviously. People are electrifying more, EVs, heat, electricity demand is going up. Electricity will become the biggest energy vector in the world. And there's a strong business case for energy efficiency and energy services. And then I think this other trend that has not really been talked about too much is what we call convergence. And that's the convergence of energy efficiency, on-site energy, demand response, and flexibility. So we're coming into a point where all these things can be delivered cost effectively in one package. So it's no longer about buying some PV or buying some energy efficiency. It's about buying an integrated convergent package. And then almost everywhere in the world, there's this nascent, fragmented ESCO market. ESCOs have been around for a long time. They clearly work in some situations, particularly in big organizations and particularly in the public sector. They're widely misunderstood. And every 5 to 7 years, there's a trend where people suddenly discover ESCOs and say, this is the answer to everything. And quite frankly, they're not the answer to everything, but they do have a really important part to play. And we need to adopt the ESCO model to different situations, which is what we've done with ESCO-In-A-Box. Where we want to get to, we need more capital going into these energy efficiency and energy transition projects. At the end of the day, that is the point, to get more capital flowing into energy efficiency and energy transition projects. And in any geography, any location, you need a trusted network of technology and delivery partners. You need a pipeline of well-developed bankable projects. There's that word again, bankable. And you also need access to dedicated finance. And to make this transition from just selling a thing like a new piece of equipment, like a new boiler or a PV panel, that's a transactional sale. And you need to move away from transactional sales to service models. And ESCO-In-A-Box is the system that we developed, and it really provides a lot of standardized documents, standardized processes, due diligence guidance. It provides an international network, and it's a licensing scheme that has credibility, and it has tools and tactics for securing finance. So ESCO-In-A-Box was designed to address those problems, particularly for markets that find it hard to access financed energy efficiency. And when I say energy efficiency, I'm including renewables and demand response and the whole piece. So ESCO-In-A-Box is an operating system for delivering de-risked, impactful energy transition projects for businesses. And companies like innovators who take on ESCO-In-A-Box really establish a one-stop shop ESCO operation that can deliver financed energy efficiency projects. And I say we developed this with some finance from the UK government, the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, in a program that was really designed to enable access to financed energy efficiency for SMEs. And SMEs are a very difficult market that don't usually access financed energy efficiency. What's in the box? ESCO-In-A-Box, people are always asking me what's in the box. There's due diligence and assessment criteria. There are templates. There's documentation suitable for talking to lenders. There's standardized processes. There's a CRM. There's also access to other ESCOs in the network, insurance and risk assessment. And there's help and processes for developing bankable projects. And then finally, access to finance is an important element of what's in the box. So case study, the first one we did was in Oxfordshire, and that's now active. These numbers are a bit out of date, but they reached 2,000 businesses in the first year. They're currently, when this slide was written, developing about 34 projects. I think it's probably more like 60 odd projects these days. All of the projects included LED lighting, which is an obvious energy saving project. A surprising number included heat pumps for heating, lots of controls. Half of them had solar PV and a smaller number with insulation. And the project sizes are quite small, which is what we intended. It was designed for SMEs, so inevitably the project size is small. And these kind of projects would not even be on the radar of conventional ESCOs or energy service companies, because conventional ESCOs need to work at a much, much bigger scale. And then Kenya innovators, we've already talked about it a bit. We worked with GIZ funding, innovators and NSA to really develop it in Kenya. And it's fed into the YEEP program that you heard about earlier. And then our latest international adventure is in the Philippines, and we're working with the UN Energy Transition Partnership to develop ESCO-In-A-Box in Southeast Asia, and particularly to put a new energy efficiency fund together that will help finance projects. So we're now applying it in the UK. We now have 6 ESCOs in the UK, Kenya, Philippines, and we have 1 ESCO in the US. So it's really starting to gain international traction now. So if the vision for this, the vision is an international network of ESCOs all using the same or very similar systems to develop very standardized projects, with ESCO-In-A-Box bringing the elements that I've already talked about, the capacity building, the documentation, the standardized contracts, support for partners, insurance, technology partners, and finance. So that's the vision that we have for ESCO-In-A-Box moving forward. And so we've now taken that one step further and created a vehicle called Energy Efficiency Africa with innovators and other partners. And we see, whether it's in Africa or even in the UK or Philippines or wherever, what we need to do to grow the market is to build this network of ESCOs offering standardized solutions. That's part one. That's what ESCO-In-A-Box does. And we need to link that to a dedicated source of funding for projects developed using the ESCO-In-A-Box system. So it's really important to think about this ecosystem. If we developed a load of ESCOs that are all churning out projects, yes, they might fund some of them, but most of the funding sources don't really understand energy efficiency. They do solar PV or they do something else, and they may talk about energy efficiency, but they don't really understand it. And so we need to create the other side of the ecosystem, which is the dedicated source of funding for projects using ESCO-In-A-Box. So we've created a vehicle, which hopefully you'll be hearing about a bit more in the coming months, called Energy Efficiency Africa Limited. And its purpose is to use the ESCO-In-A-Box toolkit to build this ecosystem of project developers to increase the flow of high quality, standardized, bankable energy efficiency projects across Africa that can be financed by a dedicated energy transition fund, as well as other funds and local banks. So that's what we're trying to do. ESCO-In-A-Box addresses the problems of conventional ESCOs. Conventional ESCOs do not address most of the market, and they are not the answer. ESCO-In-A-Box is a sort of simplified, standardized approach to developing an ESCO that can be licensed and used. So it can help build capacity, it can build training, it can build understanding and the capability to develop and implement ESCO projects. And then the other side of this, which we're working on, is bringing dedicated financing that really understands the ESCO package. So I've run through that really quickly. I'm sorry about the shortage of time, and I'm now kind of time constrained, and I apologize for communication problems. As I said, as well as having trouble with prime ministers, we're having trouble with communications today. So hopefully that was some interest, and I'm always happy to take questions. I have a few minutes now, or I'm happy to answer people's questions after the event and talk to anybody. And feel free to reach out and contact me. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. And again, sorry it was cut short.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being able to catch up with that, Dr. Stephen Fawkes. Let's give him a hearty clap for that great presentation. He's just told us about the great solution that they have at the EP group, the ESCO-In-A-Box solution that will help us to be able to implement the ESCO model here in Africa, and it's being used. As you can see, we were able to pilot it here in Kenya, and they've moved to South Asia and as well as the UK. Any questions we have for Dr. Fawkes? Let's move the microphone to this side of the room. You can see Kelvin, you had a hand up. Okay, Dr. Fawkes, we have a question here.
Okay.
Thank you. Good morning, Dr. Fawkes. I don't know whether it's morning where you are.
It is.
My name is Kelvin, and I work with an ESCO. I think one that we can categorize as a conventional ESCO. What I picked from your presentation, although I joined in a little late, looking at the solutions and the array of interventions that you enlisted, it appears to me like ESCO-In-A-Box seeks to address mostly the domestic market. Is that the case? And if not, then how big is the scope? Not that the domestic market is small. It's actually a very big, fairly less addressed area, especially in this part of the world. But could you just maybe elaborate a bit more on the
Sure.
on your addressable scope?
Sure. The first one that we did in Oxford and most of the UK ones have been designed to address the market for small businesses, SMEs. It's not domestic in the sense of residential. We think that has potential, but it's so much more difficult to address the residential market that we have not even begun to look at it now. We have enough to do in the small business sector. So in the UK, and the system was originally designed for the SME market, so small businesses, less than 250 people, so they can be quite sizable in some ways. And it can be everything from offices to small manufacturing companies, hotels, colleges, universities, that kind of market, but always with a focus on small. And then when we expanded out of the UK, really the system is applicable to any kind of project. So I know the innovators team have been working on some bigger projects in bigger businesses. So I don't see there's a sort of upward limit. There's always a small limit, project size limit that you just can't go below. But in the UK, we've gone down to projects which are £10,000, which is tiny compared to normal ESCO budgets. But equally, as I say, it can be applied up the scale to bigger projects. So it is all industrial and commercial. In the UK, primarily SMEs, but outside the UK, we've grown out of that kind of SME market. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, I can see him nodding. So I'm sure it has answered his question. So Dr. Fawkes, thank you so much. You were standing between us and our tea break, but we really do appreciate your presentation and your demystifying of what the ESCO-In-A-Box solution is and how we can use it to be able to elevate our ESCOs, the ESCO model here in Africa. Thank you so much. Let's give him a round of applause.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Okay, so you'll not be able to join us for tea, but we hope you can take some tea as you ponder on your Prime Minister crisis in London.
I'm going for my breakfast to ponder that. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
All right. Bye.